God help me, I freaking loved this show. I'll admit, when I first saw the trailers for this series, I was incredibly suspicious that it would work. Live-action anime adaptations are notorious for missing their mark when it comes to translating their source material into a format that's both digestible for mainstream audiences and appealing to fans of the original story. So when I heard that Netflix, of all companies, the same studio that brought us the failed adaptation of Cowboy Bebop and the live-action Death Note remake, both of which bombed critically and commercially, I found myself less than enthusiastic about their prospects for adapting what many consider to be the greatest anime of all time. But, god damn it, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. For those unfamiliar with the premise of the story, the narrative revolves around Monkey D. Luffy, a young pirate with the ability to stretch his body due to a magical fruit he ate when he was a child. Luffy sets his course to obtain the One Piece, a mythical treasure said to have been hidden away by the pirate king Gold Roger, and which, if any pirate managed to claim it, would make them the next pirate king. On the course of his journeys, Luffy comes across an assortment of characters who join his crew in pursuit of their own dreams, and on the way they fight against various groups of evil pirates while being hunted down by the Marines, the primary military arm of the world government. Growing up, I watched the original series, but I'll confess I didn't really keep up with it. I liked it fine, but I was always more of a Naruto, Dragon Ball, and Yu-Gi-Oh kid, and with One Piece, I ended up falling away from the show sometime during the Baroque Works arc. It's been about 20 years since I'd actually watched an episode of the original show, but luckily this first season of the adaptation covers a lot of the stuff I remember well enough, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a hard hit of nostalgia while seeing this story recreated. What I really love about this adaptation is that it knows exactly what to leave in, what to take out, what to change, and what to leave completely untouched. The original One Piece is a massive show. After running consecutively for the last 20 years, this anime is over 1,000 episodes long and still going strong, and there's no way in hell that a live-action adaptation would ever be able to match that length. Because of this, the creators of the show ended up having to cut a lot of stuff out. The first 8 episodes of this series is equal to about the first 45 or so episodes of the original series. Even taking into account that 2 episodes of the anime would make up approximately 1 live-action episode, that's still a lot of things being cut away in favor of helping the story to flow more efficiently. And it works very well. What helps is that Eiichiro Oda, the creator of the manga series on which both the anime and this adaptation are ultimately based, was a constant supervising presence on the production of this show. And nothing was changed without his express approval. While I have to give tons of credit to the talented writers and creators of this series, I think this is probably what saved the show from going the way of other less successful live-action adaptations, and it really paid off in the long run. I think what sets this show apart from other failed adaptations is its presentation. Anime is a very difficult medium to adapt because at the end of the day you have to adapt it in 2 different ways. First, you have to translate a medium designed for highly stylized characters, colorful environments, and dynamic action sequences into a medium where those things come at much more prohibitive costs, both financially and logistically, because you have to take into account what's safe for the actors, and also what you can get away with physically making in terms of props and sets. But that's not all. You also have to culturally adapt from a medium where the style of storytelling and characterization is radically different, not only from live-action media, but even from Western animation in general. Anime has a very distinct mode of expression, movement, and behavior that doesn't ring naturally to Western audiences who aren't accustomed to that style of media. And what usually happens when Western studios try to adapt popular anime is that they'll try to get around these problems by by downplaying these elements or sweeping them under the rug entirely. Notoriously bad adaptations like Dragon Ball Evolution simply abandon the environment of their source material in favor of familiar environments like an average American high school, because they're so insecure about their ability to recreate the aesthetic of the source material in a way that people can take seriously. One Piece bypasses this problem by just being completely unapologetic for how silly it is. This show knows that what it's adapting looks funny, and it doesn't care. It leans into it in a way that few other adaptations dare to, and the world of One Piece is probably one of the most difficult anime to adapt when it comes to pulling this off well. This is a very cartoonish world with a lot of strange and absurd things that you have to just learn to accept. The trick is that people who watch a lot of anime will be more conditioned to accept it as normal than someone who doesn't, which is why it's so much more impressive that this show makes the decision to lean so hard into all of it. It forces you to accept that this is a world where an admiral of the Marines just walks around wearing an angry dog hat and people use snails for phones. You learn very quickly to just go along with it, and if you can't, then at least you know the show won't be for you by an early point. In the hands of lesser writers, I could see this all being brushed over and having all the iconic elements of this world being removed for fear of it all coming off as too childish. Or I imagine some writers would constantly poke fun at it and try to wink to the audience to signal that the show isn't taking itself too seriously. But what makes the show work so well is that it does take itself seriously, despite the silliness of it. It doesn't try to downplay the stakes of its story or the emotional moments because it's worried people won't be able to look past the outfits and the theme park looking sets. It goes full throttle and says, yes, we will be goofy and weird, and you're still going to take us seriously. We dare you not to love us. To me, that choice speaks to a feeling of security that the writers had in the story they wanted to tell. You can get away with all the crazy, wacky shit you want if you know that the heart at the center of that story is strong. And it isn't just the heart of the show that's strong either, but its energy. This series has fantastic fight choreography and cinematography, which is essential. You cannot make a good One Piece adaptation without being able to cinematically keep pace with all the stunts and moves that this series demands from its characters. Every shot has to be calculated to highlight motion and impact in a way that's reminiscent of the feeling of both anime and manga panels, and the fight choreography has to be creative while not being overly flashy and disorienting. That's not to say that every single thing is pitch perfect, though. There were some minor details that I thought weren't translated as well as they could have been. The fight scenes with Kuro, for instance, felt like an overly literal adaptation of the character's movements in the original series, when I think a subtler approach would have worked better. I like the idea of him just disappearing out of frame and then reappearing somewhere else more than what they did with the lightning-fast, smudgy movements. Again, knowing what to adapt visually from an anime and how to adapt it is key to making a good translation. And while the show succeeds 9 times out of 10 at this, every once in a while it leans a little too hard on the source material, where they could have conceived more natural ways to convey the same information. But honestly, all the flaws I can think of in this show are just little things like that. And as to what really makes the show a success, I've gotta give it up to the actors. I don't think I've ever seen casting this perfect in any live-action adaptation of anything. Every member of the supporting cast looked and acted as if they'd been plucked right out of the pages, and where changes were made, it was often for the better. I like that they toned down Sanji's pervier behavior from the original show, and I like the dynamics they established between Koby and Garp throughout the season that didn't exist in the original series. These changes don't alter the story too much, and they preserve the essence of the characters without feeling like they're overhauling them to suit modern audiences. But nowhere do the characters shine more than with the Straw Hat crew themselves. Iñaki Godoy has to be the most perfect choice they could have found to play Luffy. He has the exact right mixture of charm, humor, childishness, determination, and righteous anger to make the character work, and is different from the original character only as much as he needs to be to make that leap from a cartoon to a believable human figure. And all the other main cast do a similar job in bringing their character's energy to the forefront while maintaining a sense of groundedness and direction that puts the core of their characters' personalities and desires at the center of their performance. Like with the rest of the show, you buy these characters, however strange or outrageous or comical they may appear, because these actors do such a good job at selling who they are and what they want. The chemistry among the main cast is some of the best I've seen in any production. These actors have the sort of on-screen chemistry together that makes it impossible not to believe that they have a similar relationship in real life when the cameras aren't rolling. And more than anything else, that's probably what's going to keep this series going strong in the long run, because if you can make that vibe work, you can make all of One Piece work. All I can say is, I'm ready for Season 2, and if the same team behind this ever decided to make a Naruto adaptation in the future, I could die happy. I'm giving the first season of One Piece a 10 out of 10.